times when you hear the word hospice, a very grim picture comes to mind, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes, hospice does provide comfort and care to patients with life-limiting conditions, but another big part of that is making sure those in hospice care still make the most of the time they have left. So, let's learn a little bit more. We've brought in Maureen McNeill, who's the Director of Development with Coastal Hospice and Palliative Care, and Vondi Hutt, who's the Director of Clinical Services. Thank you so much for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Okay, let me ask you this. Can you break down this stereotype of hospice care?
Yeah, the stereotype for hospice care is that people think that it's the end of life, that it's imminent death, right, which actually Coastal Hospice is there to go through the journey with the patient and the family. We encourage families and patients to come on to hospice earlier so that we may help them accomplish the things in life that they want to accomplish. And
one of those things is quality of life. That's important, isn't it?
Sure. That's the most important thing, is quality of life. When you get that terminal diagnosis, what is it that's important to you and your family? You know, what important things do you want to do? And then we try to help you reach those goals.
And that's, our staff will sit down with someone and say, first thing we say to them is, what are your goals? And people are surprised to think that they can set goals for themselves at that point when they've gotten this horrific news. But really, there are goals. There are things you want to do with your family. There are things you want to achieve. There are, you know, conversations you want to have, and this is the opportunity to have that.
Okay, so we've got this picture. We want to show this to you. And show us here, explain how you work to keep hospice patients active and engaged.
So that's Joseph Medeiros. I hope I'm getting his name correctly. He makes these kites, and in fact, he made one for, has made a couple for our staff, and he's having a show at the Ocean City Arts Center this Friday evening.
Oh, wow.
And so and because he and his family came to hospice care soon enough, we're able to get him back on his feet, help him continue creating this beautiful art that he does. And that's his nurse standing with him, by the way.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a great bond.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
For him and for the whole family.
Something else that Coastal Hospice does is honor veterans. And one of those veterans is a Coastal Hospice patient, and that is Evan Rossignol. Tell me about him.
He was a captain in the Air Force and has retired from there. He was a pharmacist there and also around this community as a pharmacist. And that's one of our volunteers who, a lot of our volunteers who are veterans participate in the We Honor Veterans program. And that's retired Brigadier General Bob Harleston saluting him, and that's part of that program. And I have to tell you, the community has been so supportive of us and our patients. That blanket was donated by someone in the community, and then our volunteers are the people who have a similar experience, who come and sit down and listen to these folks tell their stories, honor their service. It's a very different experience at this stage when you're a veteran than for most of our patients. So
oh, my goodness.
It's an awesome program.
It's a wonderful program.
So let me ask you this. It's got to take a very special type of person to do what you do, which you obviously do passionately. Why does this mean so much to you?
Hospice means so much to me because it just gives you it's a rewarding experience, because you're there, the family and the patient is allowing you to be a part of their journey, which is just awesome. I've been a nurse for 30 years, but this is a different type of nursing, and you just to see the families, and then after the passing of a patient, then of course we're there for the families. We support and follow the families as well. So it's really rewarding. We also have a pediatric program. I have a pediatric background, and it's just so awesome for families to be able to stay here on this side of the bridge with their families and not separating their families while the mother's up at the hospital, the father's home with the kids. So the children are able to come home, and it's awesome.
And it's not always, you know, the same outcome. I mean, you have seen improvement in conditions.
We have. We do. We have to discharge patients for extended prognosis, and that's because we see the patient holistically, the whole person. We're working with their mind, body, and soul, and lots of times with that attention, they actually have a better outcome. So we do that from time to time.
My mom was a hospice graduate.
Yeah.
And it was once someone was sitting across from her, instead of looking at numbers, they were looking at her. Right. They were looking at blood count and all that stuff. They were looking at her and saying, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And talking to her about what she wanted to do. And yeah, she got 4 more years back.
Wow.
There are studies that show lung cancer patients live longer under hospice than continuing therapies that are aimed at a cure that might not be a reasonable expectation. So it's
Yeah.
all about defining what is hope for you and what your
Right.
goals are.
How
That's
about that?
amazing.
It is.
Thank you so much for what
Vondi.
you do.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you for having us.